Hello, my name's Rob and welcome to Swift Slots. Now bear with me on this one, it's only going to be a very short video and it is a prelude to what's coming in the very near future. Now some of you may know I like to collect Hot Wheels, and I do like Hot Wheels versions of my slot cars as well, and with the Batman theme that's gone very nicely because they do Hot Wheels and they do the Skeletrix Batmobiles, and the two go together nicely. However, a couple of my Batmobiles are the wrong colour. These ones here, the Tumbler and the 1989 Batmobile. So in this video I want to show you how I go about taking the packets apart, stripping the models, repainting them and then putting them back into their packets so the car looks more or less the same as it did when it's hanging in the shop, apart from it's a different colour. Now I'm not going to go over anything that's not already been done in many other videos over YouTube. It's all exactly the same stuff, but some of you guys that do slot cars may not have seen it done, you may not have searched for it, and this video may show you something that you didn't already know, so it might be worth watching, and I hope you do stay with me and watch this video as well, because like I say, it is a prelude for what's coming up in the future. So let's get cracking, let's get to my workbench and we'll get these two cars into different colours and then put back into their boxes. So some of us in the Hot Wheels collecting community, when we take our cars out the packets, we like to be able to put them back in the packets and make it look as if the car's never been out, and there's a certain trick to that. Now the way you do it is you use ordinary nail varnish remover, or you can use acetone. So the way that we do it to get the card off the blister without any marks at all is you flood the back of the card in nail varnish remover, and you keep on flooding it until the card won't take any more nail varnish remover at all, and it will soak up quite a bit to start with, and you just keep on putting it on and on and on like this until you completely flooded the card. Now as you can see, the card is soaking it up quite quickly. You get a certain amount of evaporation as well, but you'll know when you're close because the card will start to puddle. I also like to put a little bit across the front as well because it speeds up the process a little bit. And don't worry about how much staining you're going to get around the edge of the card here, because that will all evaporate off when all's said and done. And as you can see, it's starting to puddle now on the card, so we're almost at saturation point now. So another little thing that I like to do is just apply a little bit of pressure against that blister, just a little bit. We're not trying to pull it off, we're just trying to encourage it to lift when it's ready. Another thing that you'll find is that on the black or on certain colours, the glue won't want to lift off as easily as it does around the white, for example. I've just felt that white go there, so I know it's off the white, but it's still not quite off that black. So I'm just applying just a little bit of pressure to just encourage it to come off that black when it's ready. I'm not pulling it, I'm just encouraging. You see here, it's already gone, it's away, but over on the black side, it's still hanging on a little bit. So we just give it a little bit longer and it will eventually come away. There we go, it's starting to go now. This whole process doesn't usually take more than a couple of minutes. You can see it's just starting to go there now. I'm not pulling it off, I'm just encouraging it to lift as it starts to let go. There, it's just come away now. Then the car comes out and the packet is nice and clean. Now the next trick is when the card has lifted like that, put some wood underneath the card like that to let it breathe, otherwise you'll find that the blister will glue itself back to the card. So once you've got to that stage, you can put that card to the side until you've finished and you want to put the car back in its packet. So we've now just got the car. So what we're going to do now is we're going to drill out those two holes to approximately 1.9 mil. And I'm going to drill that 1.9 mil drill down into the middle of that rivet, about 3 or 4 mil. It's worth noting how deep you can go roughly on the outside. You only really want to spot the center of that rivet while it's actually in a rivet form, because it's easier to do it now than it would be when you remove the actual rivet top. So I'm going to drill 1.9 mil hole about 3 mil deep in both of the rivets to establish the center, and then after that I should go in with a 4 mil drill, drill out the outside until the rivet just about lets go and I can remove the chassis from the body. So once you've drilled the top of the rivet out so you can see the black of the chassis coming through, and in this particular case this is a plastic body and a metal base, which is normally the opposite way around. Hot Wheels are normally metal bodies with a plastic base, but for some reason it's opposite. So you can see the shininess of the chassis coming through, so you know that you've taken away all the rivet. Now you can simply lift the chassis from the body. It might take a little bit of persuasion to come out because sometimes they can be a little bit stiff, and that's a good thing because you don't want to go too big when you drill out the rivet, otherwise you lose material. So here we are. So that's going to be set aside to be painted black on the inside because I don't mind that slight purple hue on the outside. It won't show by the time the inside is black, but it will look quite good. So here is the plastic body that we now need to paint. So this particular body has got a little bit of tampo printing on it. So what I'll do is I'll lightly sand off that tampo printing so it doesn't interfere with the black paint when it goes on and leave a slight mark. And as you can see, it's coming off really easily. Now normally with these bodies, like I say, they're normally in die cast metal. So all you would do there is just dump it into ordinary paint stripper and get all the old paint off first and give it a good rub down with some Scotch-Brite paper to get it ready for paint. But in this case, it's plastic body, so there's not much to do. Just get rid of these impressions of the tampo printing and then we can go to the spray booth. Okay, so in the case of some Hot Wheels cars, we have these coloured bands on the wheels. Now this is not very strong. It comes off extremely easily, so we don't need to work too hard to get those bands off. And the way that I do it is I just use a little bit of this scratch remover for a car. And I take a little tiny bit on my cotton earbud and I just give it a little bit of a rub. And you'll see that it will come off extremely easily. So there the purple plating is down to the silver, and then straight after the silver, which they need for the reflectiveness of it, you'll get the black wheel straight away. And as you can see, doing it in real time here, it takes almost no effort to get rid of that marking around the wheel. Just give them a little bit of a rub and you can see it's gone. A little bit more car body, car scratch paint stuff, and keep going. And there we are, that's all of the purple off of the wheel. And to get rid of the residue, just give it a good old scrub with a toothbrush, get the last of it off, and then once you've got that off, give it a little buff with a soft cloth, and you end up with a completely clean wheel. What we're going to do now is the other three. And sometimes on your chassis you need to add a little bit of colour. So what I like to do to get the end of these axles is if you pull the wheel up, push the back wheel down, that locks the axle in place. So when you let go of the wheel there, it drops down into place. And what you can do then is use a toothpick and a little bit of black paint and apply it to the centre of the axle. And when you let it go, the axle drops down in place. Again, lift up the wheel, push the back one, let the one go that you were holding, it lifts the axle, and then with a toothpick you can just pick out the centre of the axle. And then the same on the other ones. And then for other small detail, I also like to use a toothpick because I find it more controllable than a paintbrush. You can just toothpick the colours straight on like that. So once you've finished at the spray booth, you should end up with a body looking vaguely similar to this, although your mileage may vary with the colour. But I'm very lucky with the Batmobile because it's just satin black, and I find the Mr. Colour black primer to be a fantastic source of satin black, and I don't feel the need to take this body any further than it is now. Now normally I screw my bodies on with these little tiny self tappers. These particular ones I get from Model Fixings, and they are number 2 size, 6.4mm long. The threads are about 2.2mm on the outside, and the heads themselves are 4mm in diameter. Unfortunately, with this particular car, these holes are actually bigger than 4mm. Now that sometimes is the case with Hot Wheels, they're not always the same. So what I've done in this particular build is I've taken these very small screws with the heads already built in, and these are an absolutely perfect fit in this particular car, although I would normally use these particular screws here if they fitted. But say, different Hot Wheels use different screw sizes in the chassis, it's just how it goes. So all we need to do now is reassemble this car and get it back in its box. And there we are, all finished, looking very, very nice indeed. Hugely improved over the standard white car. I don't know why you'd want to buy a Batmobile that's not in black, but there you go. You can't account for taste, I suppose. Now, I think that looks absolutely stunning. Really, really happy with that. Right, so the trick of getting these cars back into their boxes is like this. So if we pop the car back in the box and then hold the box down with wooden clothes pegs. Quite important to use wooden clothes pegs because plastic might well melt when you're putting the nail varnish remover back on it. So about 3 across the bottom and 2 either side. And then all we simply do is flood the bottom of the card, a little bit like we did when we took it apart, but this time we're doing it so we can glue it back together again. And you only need to just touch it on the bottom in a few places, just enough to get the nail varnish remover to flood back in to the card, and you'll see it racing back underneath the actual plastic. And that's it. Just leave it like that now for about 20 minutes, and then when you come back you can take off the pegs and the card will be perfect. And there we are. That's how I open my packets, recolor my cars and seal them back up into the packets, hopefully looking almost as good as they did when they were in the shop, albeit in a different colour. So there we are. And there we are. That's how I turn my Hot Wheels into different colours and put them back in their box. Now I know this isn't quite the same content as I usually make, and don't worry, I won't be dwelling on Hot Wheels too many times in the future, but this video is quite relevant to what's coming up, as I said before. Hopefully you've learned something, hopefully at the very least you found it entertaining. So if you've enjoyed this sort of content, maybe you'll subscribe, and if you could hit the little bell button, that will be awesome. So until the next time, thank you very much.